The city of Enugu was alive as always. The afternoon sun blazed over the red roofs and dusty streets as traders shouted prices and taxis honked endlessly. The sound of life filled every corner, from the laughter of school children to the clatter of sewing machines near the market. Among those machines was one owned by Christopher, a humble roadside tailor. His shop wasn't more than a small wooden shed just beside a busy junction near Ogi Road. The signboard above it was faded, but if you looked closely, you could still make out the words, "Chris Stitches, quality tailoring for all." Christopher worked from dawn till late evening, mending torn clothes and sewing new ones with patient dedication. His dream was simple, to one day have a proper tailoring shop where he could employ others and take care of his aging mother. On that particular evening, the wind carried the smell of roasted corn and suya from nearby stalls. Christopher had just finished patching an old pair of trousers for a customer. He stood up, stretched his back, and stepped outside for some air. He wiped his sweaty forehead and smiled faintly. Across the street, a small girl was hurrying down the road, balancing a yellow jerry can on her head. She looked to be around 12, her clothes old but neatly worn. Her name was Sophia. She was an orphan living with her sick guardian, Mama Ngozi, who had been coughing for days. Sophia had gone to fetch water from the nearby stream and was rushing back before it got dark. But in her haste, she didn't notice the danger ahead. A car, a black SUV, came speeding down the road, its tires screeching against the tarmac. The driver honked loudly, but Sophia was already in the middle of the road, frozen like a statue. Her eyes widened in terror, her legs unable to move. Christopher saw it all. He didn't think twice. Dropping his scissors and the fabric in his hands, he ran forward with everything he had. His heart pounded as the car came closer, its horn blaring. Just a few feet from disaster, Christopher lunged, grabbing Sophia's arm and pulling her with all his strength. They both tumbled to the side of the road. The SUV's bumper brushed Christopher's leg, sending a sting of pain through him, but the car sped past. Dust and panic filled the air. For a moment, there was silence. Then people began to gather. "Hey, are you all right?" someone shouted. Christopher lay on the ground, breathing heavily. Sophia clung to him, trembling and crying. I didn't see the car," she stammered between sobs. Christopher forced a smile through his pain. "It's okay, my child. You're safe now." He stood slowly, wincing as he tried to put weight on his leg. Sophia wiped her tears and looked up at him with innocent eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for saving me." Christopher shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank God. Just be careful next time." He noticed the empty jerry can beside her. "Where were you going?" he asked. "To fetch water for my guardian," she replied softly. "She's sick, and I must cook and give her medicine." Christopher's heart softened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the little money he had earned that day. "Here, take this," he said, handing her a few naira notes. "Buy food and medicine for her. And promise me you'll always look before crossing the road." Sophia hesitated, but his kindness left her speechless. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "I will never forget this day. I promise I will repay you one day." Christopher chuckled. "Don't worry about that. Just take care of yourself." As Sophia walked away, she turned back once more. The orange glow of the sunset painted the sky, and the tailor's small shop stood behind him like a symbol of humble greatness. She watched him limp slightly as he picked up his scissors from the ground, dusted them, and returned to his machine as if nothing had happened. That night, Christopher's leg ached badly, but his heart was light. He couldn't stop thinking about the little girl. "She's strong," he thought, smiling faintly. "Life will be kind to her one day." But life wasn't kind to Christopher. Months turned into years, and his dreams remained dreams. The rent for his roadside space increased, and customers often delayed payments. Sometimes he would sleep hungry, but he never complained. His spirit was strong. The same pair of hands that had once saved a child now struggled daily to save himself from poverty. Still, he never gave up. Every morning he whispered a short prayer, "God bless the work of my hands." He didn't know that miles away, in the same city of Enugu, the little girl whose life he saved was also praying, but her prayer was for him. Sophia had grown into a determined young woman. After her guardian's death, she worked as a cleaner in a small clinic, saving every little money she could. She studied hard, earned scholarships, and years later graduated as a medical doctor. Her journey wasn't easy, but every time she faced challenges, she remembered that poor tailor who risked his life for her. If he could save me when he had nothing, she told herself, then I can save others, no matter how hard life gets. By her late 20s, Dr. Sophia had become a respected figure in Enugu. She managed her own private hospital, known for helping the poor and treating patients who couldn't afford bills. Yet even in her success, she never forgot Christopher. She still passed that Ogi junction sometimes, looking at every small shop, hoping to find him again. But the world had changed. Christopher's shop was still there, though smaller now, weathered by time. His hair had begun to grey, his fingers stiff from years of sewing. But his heart remained the same, kind and selfless. He never imagined that fate was about to bring Sophia back into his life in the most unexpected way, just as it had years ago on that busy street. Because soon, the poor roadside tailor who once saved a little girl would find himself lying helpless, fighting for his own life. And the only person who could save him would be that same little girl. Now a doctor, now a woman, now his miracle. The morning sun crept gently over the hills of Enugu, casting long golden rays that glimmered across rooftops and busy markets. It was another ordinary day for Christopher, the roadside tailor whose small wooden kiosk stood faithfully by Ogi Road. For more than 2 decades, that little space had been his world, a home to his dreams, struggles, and countless stitches of other people's joy. Inside, the rhythmic sound of his sewing machine filled the air like music. Turr, turr, turr. His hands moved swiftly, guiding the fabric beneath the needle. He was finishing a customer's wedding outfit, a bright blue senator suit, when a sudden pain shot through his chest. He gasped, dropped the fabric, and sat back on his stool, clutching his side. Maybe I just need rest, he whispered, trying to brush it off. His body had grown weak over the years, but he had no choice but to keep working. Every day without sewing meant an empty stomach at night. By noon, the streets outside were full of life. Children from nearby schools ran past his shop, traders called out prices, and motorbikes roared by. Christopher, trying to focus, bent over the sewing machine again. But as he pressed the pedal, a sharp spark jumped from the electric cord. Psht! The machine gave a loud crackling sound, and before he could pull his hand away, the needle snapped and struck deep into his finger. Ah! Christopher cried out, jerking backward. Blood trickled down his palm as the machine went silent. He stumbled, losing balance, and hit his head against the edge of the wooden table. For a moment, the world around him blurred. When he tried to stand, dizziness overwhelmed him. The sound of passing cars faded into a low hum. Then everything went dark. 2 hours later, the sun began to set over Enugu. A crowd had gathered around the small kiosk. "He's still breathing," someone shouted. "Quick, call an ambulance." A young man who owned a nearby kiosk dialed the emergency number, and soon a white van with Sophia Medical Center written on its side arrived. The nurses rushed out with a stretcher, lifting Christopher carefully into the vehicle. His body was limp, his face pale. At the hospital, he was wheeled into the emergency ward. The doctors on duty began immediate treatment, unaware that fate was quietly weaving 2 lives back together. Across town, Dr. Sophia was just leaving her apartment after a rare day of rest. She was not scheduled for duty that day. She had planned to spend her evening visiting a charity home. But as she reached for her car keys, her phone rang. "Good evening, Ma," said Nurse Ifeoma, her voice tense. "We just received an emergency case, an elderly tailor from Ogi Road. He was found unconscious after an electric shock and injury. His condition is critical." Sophia frowned. "From Ogi Road," she repeated softly. Something about that location made her heart beat faster. "What's his name?" The nurse hesitated. "We haven't confirmed yet, Ma, but he's known around there as Mr. Christopher the tailor." Sophia froze. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. "Christopher?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Did you say Christopher the tailor?" "Yes, Ma." Sophia didn't wait for more. She grabbed her car keys, rushed out, and drove straight to the hospital. The moment she entered the emergency unit, her eyes darted to the stretcher at the corner of the room. The man lying there was frail, his once strong hands now covered in small cuts. A bandage wrapped around his forehead, and an IV line ran into his arm. Sophia walked closer, her heart pounding. The fluorescent light flickered above him, casting a soft glow on his tired face. It was him. The man who had saved her life years ago, the man whose kindness had changed her destiny, now lay before her, fighting for his own. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Oh, Christopher, it's me, Sophia." The nurses glanced at her in surprise, but she quickly composed herself. "Get me his file," she said firmly. "I'm taking over his treatment." Within minutes, Sophia examined his vitals, gave fresh medical instructions, and arranged for a private room. "He must not lack anything," she said to the nurses. "Whatever the bill is, put it under my account." For the next 2 days, Sophia barely left his side. She checked his progress every hour, ensuring he received the best care. When she wasn't attending to him, she sat by his bed, remembering the day he saved her, his gentle smile, his reassuring words. On the third night, Christopher stirred for the first time. His eyelids fluttered open, and he blinked at the bright ceiling. Everything felt strange, the clean white sheets, the quiet hum of machines, the faint scent of antiseptic. "Where am I?" he murmured weakly. "You're in the hospital," Sophia said softly, leaning forward with a smile. "You had an accident at your shop." Christopher turned his head slowly toward the voice. When his eyes focused on her face, he squinted. There was something familiar about the woman before him, her calm eyes, her gentle tone. "I know you," he whispered, "but I can't remember." Sophia took his hand gently. "You once saved my life," she said, her voice trembling, "years ago at Ogwe Road. I was a little girl who almost got hit by a car. You pulled me to safety that day." Recognition dawned in Christopher's eyes. His lips parted in disbelief. "You... Sophia?" She nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Yes, it's me." Christopher blinked rapidly, overcome by emotion. "Ah, so you became a doctor," he said slowly, his voice shaking. "I always knew you were destined for greatness." Sophia smiled through her tears. "You saved my life when you had nothing, Christopher. Now it's my turn to save yours." He closed his eyes, tears slipping down the sides of his face. "God is truly wonderful," he whispered. "I thought the world had forgotten me." "Not me," Sophia said softly. "I never forgot you." Days turned into weeks. Under Sophia's care, Christopher recovered steadily. His color returned, his strength grew, and his laughter began to fill the ward. Every morning, Sophia stopped by his room before starting her rounds, sometimes bringing him breakfast or a new set of clothes. They talked often, about life, faith, dreams, and the years that had passed between them. Sophia shared how she had struggled to study medicine and build her hospital from nothing. Christopher, in turn, told her how he had kept her memory alive through prayer, hoping she was doing well wherever she was. When he was finally strong enough to leave the hospital, Sophia walked him to the car herself. "You're not going back to that roadside shop," she said with a warm smile. "You've done enough for Enugu. Now it's time I do something for you." Christopher looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "You'll see," Sophia replied, eyes twinkling. As the car pulled away from the hospital, Christopher had no idea that his life, once marked by struggle and pain, was about to change forever. The kindness he had sown years ago was finally coming back to him in full bloom. The Harmattan breeze returned to Enugu with quiet confidence, brushing past tall trees and low shops, leaving a faint white dust on window ledges and road signs. By the time Christopher could walk without help, the city had turned a pale gold in the mornings. He often stood by the ward window in Sophia Medical Center, looking out over the roofs, listening to the soft footsteps of nurses and the distant honk of tricycles on the street below. Each day felt like a gift he had not expected to receive. Sophia kept her promise. She visited him early, before her rounds, and again in the late afternoon when the halls were calmer. Sometimes she brought books on small business management and tailoring techniques. Sometimes she brought oranges, bread, or a short poem scribbled on a notepad to make him smile. Always, she brought the same message in different words. "You still have a future, Christopher." Physiotherapy became part of his routine. The accident had left his shoulder stiff and his right hand weak, a risk for a tailor whose hands were his livelihood. The therapist showed him exercises with elastic bands and grip balls. At first he trembled with effort, but Sophia encouraged him through each slow repetition. "Skill is patient," she would say. "Patience is how skill returns." In quiet hours, Christopher asked careful questions about her life. He learned how she had worked in a clinic as a teenager, how she studied late at night, and how scholarships and small miracles had carried her through medical school. He admired her discipline as much as her success. "You refused to give up," he said one evening. "I remembered a man who refused to walk past danger," she replied. "So I kept walking toward my dream." News of Christopher's recovery spread beyond the hospital. Traders who once mended their clothes at his kiosk came with fruit baskets and prayers. A bus driver dropped by to say thank you for a suit Christopher had stitched years ago in a hurry. The security guard from a bank along Ogi Road came on his day off carrying a small envelope with a contribution from his colleagues. "Your hands gave us dignity," he said, "so we want to give you strength." When the doctors finally cleared him for discharge, Sophia arranged a small send-off in the hospital garden. The nurses sang a gentle hymn. A therapist made a short speech about resilience. Sophia handed Christopher a neat folder with his medical notes and a printed recovery plan. Tucked inside the folder was a business card for Okpara Square Realty, with a note in Sophia's neat handwriting: "We will visit a few shops next week. Wear comfortable shoes." Christopher laughed softly, surprised by the warmth that rose in his chest. For years he had measured progress by the day's completed hems and the night's quiet prayers. Now someone else was measuring his progress too, and believing in a longer road ahead. They began with a walk through familiar places. On a bright Tuesday, Sophia drove them down to Ogui Road. They parked and stood across from the old kiosk. The wooden frame leaned a little to the left. The tin roof rattled when a gust of wind ran across it. Christopher's signboard, "Chris Stitches, Quality Tailoring for All," had faded into a nostalgic whisper. He stepped closer and touched the counter where he had once measured cloth and shared stories. "This place taught me how to stand," he said. "It taught me how to serve." Sophia listened, then asked a gentle question. "Do you want to rebuild here, or do you want a new beginning somewhere stronger?" He took his time. The traffic hummed. A newspaper vendor negotiated prices nearby. Two schoolchildren chased each other past a puddle. "A new beginning," he said at last. "It is time." They viewed 3 locations that week. The first, near New Haven, had a good front but little light inside. The second, a few streets from Abakpa, was spacious but set too far from foot traffic. The third, on a corner not far from Okpara Avenue, had broad windows, dependable power, and a clear view of passing customers. Christopher stood in the empty space and spread his arms as if measuring a garment wider than anything he had stitched. Sunlight fell across the tiled floor in clean rectangles. "I can see it," he said, eyes brightening. "Cutting table here, machines along that wall, fitting mirrors near the window, a small lounge for customers with magazines, and a display rack for sample styles, English and native." Sophia smiled. "English wear, native wear, shoes and cosmetics," she added, remembering the shop he had once dreamed aloud. "Let us design it well." They sat with an architect recommended by the realtor. He sketched the interior on graph paper, a long wooden cutting table with safe rounded corners, well-spaced electrical outlets for industrial machines, a stockroom with labeled shelves, a shoe display with soft lighting, a cosmetics corner arranged like a calm boutique. Christopher chose a palette of warm cream and deep brown, with hints of green to soften the space. "It should feel honest and welcoming," he said. "People should relax as soon as they step in." Next came the machines. Sophia drove him to a reputable supplier who dealt in industrial sewing equipment. They walked past rows of shining bodies and polished metal arms, straight stitch machines, overlockers, cover stitch machines for knitwear, heavy-duty leather stitchers. The salesman demonstrated each one with professional pride. Christopher tested the pedals with careful feet, guided fabric through the needles, listened to the tone of each motor like a musician training his ear. "This one," he said at last, resting his hand on a sturdy straight stitch machine. "It is strong but graceful." He selected a high-speed overlocker for clean edges, a buttonhole machine for fine shirts, and a compact leather-capable machine for shoes and belts. Sophia quietly signed the order sheet. "You will also need staff," she said as they left. "Not only apprentices, skilled hands who can grow with you." They drew up a plan: 2 experienced tailors, 1 apprentice eager to learn, 1 front desk assistant with a friendly voice and tidy handwriting, and a part-time stylist to coordinate ready-to-wear collections for weekends. Christopher insisted on fair wages and clear training goals. "We will build people as we build garments," he said. They returned to the old kiosk one last time to pack what could be saved: a tin box of tape measures, chalk, and spare zippers. a worn notebook filled with measurements and names, a small framed picture of Christopher's late mother. He locked the door, handed the landlord the key, and bowed his head in quiet gratitude. "Thank you for sheltering me," he whispered to the wood and tin. Then he walked away without looking back. As the new shop took shape, Sophia introduced Christopher to her foundation team. They were planning a community program titled Work of Our Hands, a monthly event where small business owners would teach young people practical skills. "You will be our first presenter," Sophia said. Topic: From mending to mastery. Christopher laughed, a rich sound that surprised even him. "I will bring patterns and patience," he replied. The days moved with purpose. The floor was laid, the lights were mounted, the mirrors arrived. A carpenter built a strong cutting table and branded racks. The machines came in under protective film, each one set on padded mounts to reduce vibration. The cosmetics corner received glass shelves and a soft chair. The shoe display, crafted by a quiet artisan from Emene, looked like a small stage, ready for polished pairs to stand and shine. At night, Christopher reviewed style books and drafted a simple catalogue: crisp English shirts, tailored senator styles, gowns with true lines, corporate skirts with clean fall, native wrappers with modern blouses, and a small line of ready-to-wear for weekends. He added a note in the margin: "Apprentices will learn finishing first. Beauty lives in the finish." Even with progress, he worried about the future. Sitting at his new cutting table one evening, he confessed it to Sophia. "What if customers do not come? What if my hands are slower than they used to be?" "Excellence calls people," she said, resting her palm lightly on the table. "Kindness keeps them. You have both. And if fear speaks, we will answer it with skill." On a bright Friday morning, the storefront signs arrived. The letters gleamed even before they were lifted into place. Christopher and Kotra, bespoke tailoring, English and native wear, shoes and cosmetics. Beneath the main sign, in smaller text, "Work of Our Hands, Training and Apprenticeship." Passers-by slowed to read. A woman with a shopping bag smiled. A young man took a photo and sent it to a friend. The contractor wiped his hands and nodded. "Tomorrow by 10 a.m. we can open," he said. Sophia looked at Christopher. The morning light caught the new glass, and their reflections stood side by side. Doctor and tailor, saver and saved, two lives stitched together by mercy. "Are you ready?" she asked. Christopher ran his fingertips across the smooth edge of the cutting table. He felt the steady weight of the moment, the hum of the machines waiting, the breath of a city that loved a good story of hard work and restoration. "Yes," he said with quiet certainty, "I am ready." That evening the staff gathered for a brief rehearsal. The front desk assistant practiced greetings. The tailors tested thread tension. The apprentice arranged the sample rack with careful pride. Christopher gave final instructions in a calm voice. "We will begin with gratitude," he said. "Every stitch must tell the truth." Outside, Enugu settled into a soft dusk. Traffic eased. Lights blinked on across Okpara Avenue. The air grew cooler. Christopher locked the new glass door and stood on the sidewalk with Sophia for a final look. The shop glowed warmly behind the glass, like a lighthouse for craft and honest work. "Tomorrow," Sophia said, smiling. "Tomorrow," Christopher echoed, feeling the word rise in him like a new dawn. He did not know who would walk through the door first. He only knew the door would be open, the machines would sing, and the story that began at a roadside kiosk and at a dangerous crossing years before was about to enter its brightest chapter yet. The sun rose gently over Enugu, casting a warm glow across the freshly polished tiles outside Christopher and Kumda's bespoke tailoring. Today was the official opening. The new shop stood proudly along the road, its wide glass windows reflecting the lively city around it. The signage gleamed in gold lettering, and the interior lights glowed softly, ready to welcome the world. Inside, Christopher stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting the collar of his neatly pressed white shirt. He wore a navy blue senator set, his own handiwork, tailored flawlessly. His face carried a mixture of excitement, gratitude, and quiet disbelief. After years of struggle, after days of lying unconscious, with his life hanging by a thread, he was about to step into a future he never imagined. At exactly 9:30 a.m., Sophia arrived. She wore a simple but elegant teal gown, her stethoscope tucked into her handbag as if symbolizing both doctor and businesswoman. "You look wonderful," she said with a bright smile. Christopher bowed slightly. "All thanks to you, Sophia. I still cannot believe this is real." "It is real," she replied softly, "and you earned it. This is only the beginning." By 10 a.m., a small crowd had gathered. Market women, taxi drivers, children, elderly men, and even some nurses from Sophia's hospital came to witness the opening. A pastor from a nearby church offered a short prayer, asking for blessings over the work of Christopher's hands and for prosperity to follow every stitch and every customer who walked through the doors. After the Amen, the front desk assistant cut the ribbon and applause filled the air. "Welcome everyone," Christopher announced, smiling wide. "Please come in." From the moment the first visitor stepped inside, the shop felt alive. The polished machines hummed softly, the scent of new fabric mixed with the faint, pleasant fragrance from the cosmetics corner. A grandmother from Coal Camp asked for a wrapper blouse for church. A young man requested a modern senator style. A school teacher bought a pair of polished shoes from the display shelf. Customers admired the organized layout. The English wear section with shirts, trousers, and jackets displayed carefully, the native wear section showcasing richly colored fabrics, the cosmetics corner with lotions, perfumes, powders, and carefully arranged hair products, and the shoe stand displaying leather sandals, office shoes, sneakers, and slippers. Sophia stood quietly at the back, observing with a full heart as customer after customer praised the shop. "This is beautiful. Ah, this tailor has upgraded. Wow, I never expected this level of packaging. I love this place, sir. Everything in one shop." Christopher worked with calm confidence. His hands moved quickly, taking measurements, sketching simple style drafts, and offering fashion suggestions. His two full-time tailors assisted customers with fittings, while the apprentice arranged fabrics neatly and smiled shyly at compliments. Every so often, Christopher would glance at Sophia and give a grateful nod. She always smiled back. The unspoken bond between them, formed years ago on the road and renewed at the hospital, had grown into a friendship deeply rooted in kindness and purpose. Business flourished from the very first day. By noon, the shop was full. When they took a short break, Sophia brought cold drinks for the staff. They sat around a small table as customers browsed. Christopher cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he began. "This shop, these machines, the clothes, the shoes, the cosmetics, I know they didn't come from my pocket. They came from a heart that once promised to repay a kindness. Sophia, thank you for believing in me more than I believed in myself." Sophia's eyes softened. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "The day you saved me from that car, you gave me a future. Everything I have done now is just a seed returning to the soil it came from." The room fell quiet for a moment, touched by the sincerity of her words. The weeks that followed became a testament to growth. Every morning, Christopher arrived early, sweeping the walkway, adjusting displays, and reviewing customer orders. The staff arrived shortly after, always cheerful, always ready. Sophia visited often, sometimes dropping by with fabric samples she thought would inspire new designs, sometimes sitting quietly as Christopher worked, sometimes discussing new ideas for community outreach. One Saturday afternoon, Sophia brought a group of teenagers from her foundation. "Christopher," she said, "these are young people who want to learn practical skills. Some are orphans, some come from difficult homes. I thought your shop could be a place where they learn hope." Without hesitation, Christopher welcomed them. He showed them how to thread a needle, how to mark fabric, how to cut straight lines, how to respect every piece of cloth as if it had a story. The teenagers listened with fascination. One asked, "Sir, how did you learn all this?" Christopher smiled. "Life taught me, and kindness kept me learning." Sophia, standing in the corner, felt a warmth spread in her chest. She realized that helping Christopher had created a ripple effect far bigger than she predicted. As months passed, Christopher became known throughout Enugu as the tailor with a golden story, the man who saved a little girl and was saved by that same girl many years later. Customers came not only for clothes, but for inspiration. They admired the quality of the garments, the cleanliness of the shop, the warmth of the staff, and most of all, the humility of its owner. The shop expanded again, this time on its own merit. They added a small section for ready-made female gowns and office wear, then another for handbags and wallets. Although the business grew rapidly, Christopher remained the same humble man he had always been. He paid his staff on time, supported the community, and assisted elderly customers for free when they could not afford repairs. Word spread far beyond Enugu. Newspapers wrote features about him. Youth organizations invited him to speak at seminars. His story became an example of how kindness can come full circle in the most beautiful way. One evening, as the shop closed and the last customer left, Sophia walked in. Christopher was finishing up a jacket on the industrial machine. The room glowed with warm evening light. "I came to check on your day," she said. He stood up, wiping his hands with a clean cloth. "It was wonderful," he replied. "Every day feels like gratitude multiplied." Sophia smiled. "Christopher, I am proud of you. You've built something strong." He looked around the shop, the machines humming in the corner, the neatly arranged clothing racks, the polished shoes, the stocked cosmetics, the display mannequins dressed in flawless outfits. Then he looked back at her. "You built the foundation," he said. "I'm only standing on it." They shared a quiet moment of understanding, a moment that acknowledged everything they had walked through together. Outside, the city lights of Enugu flickered on. Cars passed steadily. The world moved as it always had, but for Christopher and Sophia, everything had changed forever. From a dusty roadside rescue to a hospital miracle. From a humble tailor's courage to a doctor's unwavering gratitude. From a small kiosk to a thriving fashion enterprise. Their lives had been stitched together by destiny's steady hand. And just as she promised on the day he saved her life, Sophia had repaid him, not with equal measure, but with abundant grace. Christopher was no longer a poor roadside tailor, he was now a respected businessman, a man of influence, comfort, and honor in Enugu. His shop was full. His heart was full. And the future stretched before him like a bright, unrolled fabric waiting for new designs. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you like the story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.